Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge and welcome to a week 13 wrap up, and this is basically wrapping up the rest of March. I did put up my monthly wrap up yesterday, so you'll be able to watch that now, or maybe you already have, but I didn't end up finishing a book on the first day of April. So this is basically wrapping up the end of March. I'm really feeling my shirt today. I found one of these like peekaboo shirts that shows off most of my tattoo anyway. The bird kind of looks like it's flying out of a cave or something, which is great. And it says, "Nope, not today," which I actually have a few shirts that say like, "Nope." But this one really worked for me. So we actually have 9 books to talk about today. Quite a few of them were pretty chunky. So part of the reason why there's only 9 is like, there was just a lot going on. My patrons and channel members are very important to me. They keep the lights on here. They keep me reading the books I want to read, and it's amazing. So we have Alyssa B to welcome to the Patreon. So Alyssa, thank you so much for supporting me here, and know that your monthly backing really helps me be able to do what I love to do. That was a really weird intro today. I'm sorry. Let's shake it off. Let's get it going, all right? So yeah, we have 9 books to talk about. Some really great ones in here, so let's go. If you see me looking down, it's because I have my notes on my computer down here, and I frequently will look down to those for certain things. So first up, we had Found by Ellie Wade. So this was actually a part of the ABCs of Love read-along that I'm doing with my friend Jackie, and Becky, she has joined us for all of the shows so far. And for this one, we had E and F. E had actually been renamed something, but it still like stood for eternal. And then Found was a interracial, mean girl made good, firefighter hero, kind of a one-night stand, and then there's even a second chance thrown in. So if you can't tell, there was a lot of stuff going on with this one. Now, this is one I was pretty intrigued by because I liked the idea of like mean girl made good. Like that's kind of what the trope was that was being sold to me. However, in reality, it was more of like party girl made good, because our heroine is into, she is just kind of listless in life and hasn't really found her purpose, and so she has like leaned into drugs at different points, and her and the hero meet when she comes to town to visit her friend, and she has like a week-long fling with this hero, and something happens where he asks her to leave, and they both can't stop thinking about each other. So then that's where kind of a second chance comes in, even though they never really had started. So basically, this one was a hot mess. I was pretty excited for this one, but I've also been keeping my expectations pretty low for this series because honestly, we talked about it among ourselves. They're all pretty short novels, so even the ones that have a good premise don't necessarily do their best work with the story. And this one was definitely a case of like, there's some pretty heavy things that are being taken on here, and I don't think we gave it enough time and enough breathing room to effectively like tackle it, and that was kind of disappointing to me. But I didn't hate it, but it still was a 3-star, and it was a 2.5 on the spice scale. To me, it actually was kind of the spiciest one in the series, partially because they have a one-night stand, like they have that fling in the beginning. And then the trigger warnings is the drug use by the heroine, which we do see happen sometimes. So next up, we had the reread, which was bittersweet to be doing, but I reread House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J. Maas, and of course, this was the final book in the SJM along. So starting last February or March, I don't even remember now when, I think it was last March, we began rereading all of her books in publication order, and we've just finished it. The live show is available on mine as well as all the previous. I have a playlist linked in my profile so you can watch through all of our thoughts. So there's not much to say about this one because it could spoil things, but I very much enjoyed going back to this one. This book is the reason that I started SJM along, because last year when I finished this book and there's some reveals made at the end, I was like, I need to start at the beginning and see how we got here and what clues have been laid along the way. And it was fascinating. And I very much look forward to the next book, but we're not getting it until January of next year. So I probably will be rereading Crescent City 1 and 2 when we get closer to that. We also may have another like follow-up SJM along where we like just talk about theories and stuff. There's also some people who are part of the read along that like they're just a little bit behind just because it's a lot to commit to these books. And so we want to have kind of like a follow-up live show where more of us can join and we can just talk about the theories. So we'll probably do that maybe this summer, or maybe even maybe even closer to when the book comes out. But yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. So of course this was a 6-star book for me when I read it. It was a 6-star book now. It's only really a 1.5 on the spice scale though, because it's really not the spice that we're all like is happening for that, but I still very much enjoyed it. Next, there was Zephyr Wind Blows by the French Press. This is a fanfic, and this was one that I had found when I was looking for a bunch by the French Press. I think it's this. They write fanfic as well as are a like fanfic artist, and I've been following their Instagram for a while, and I decided to look them up on AO3 and basically downloaded all of their fics that were longer than a one-shot. Particularly I was interested because they have some Snape and Luna fic. And so that's what this one was. Zephyr Wind Blows is a Luna, Lovegood, and Snape. And so with this one, it's been a few years obviously after everything, and Snape is kind of sort of in hiding. Not really in hiding because like he's in trouble, but in hiding because the kind of fame that he got from the whole like Dark Lord situation isn't his favorite. And so he's kind of traveling and also like learning from other great potion masters around the world, which is cool. And then there's Luna, who she is doing her studies, and they keep bumping into each other in different countries. And at first Snape is very much like, I don't want to associate with anyone from Hogwarts at all. But they keep running into each other and bumping into each other along the way. And eventually he realizes that he has a little crush on his previous student. And now he doesn't know how to feel about that. But it's very beautiful how it goes. And like Luna is just the right amount of bold and quirky to like kind of push him to share how he feels about things. And I really liked that. So there's another Snape and Luna that I have downloaded from the French Press that I will read. I think that one has a bit more of like overcoming PTSD in it. But I did greatly enjoy this one, and I gave it 4 stars, and it's a 2.5 on the spice scale, and it does have a trigger warning for mental illness in a parent. Xenophilius Lovegood is kind of struggling with his mental health in this, and we see that addressed a couple times. I even have my Harry Potter coffee mug today. All right, then my friend Tara was kind enough to send me a copy of this book for my birthday, but I had just read it. I just read the ebook, and then I got the physical book from her, which was so nice. So I actually read Yearning for Her by Tiffany Roberts. This was a new release. I was ready to jump on it the day that it came out. This is the alternate cover that is the hardcover, and I just fucking love it. Like, just look at the piercings. Look at this gorgeous plus size woman. The other cover, this one, is even, that's for the paperback, and the ebook is beautiful too. So with this we have Kyan, who is a incubus, and we have Willow Crowley, who is just this lovely human woman, but she's having a bad day in the beginning. She finds out her boyfriend has been cheating on her, and Kyan happens to be prowling for a meal because he feeds off the pleasure of his, I mean, I wouldn't call them victims because he's giving them a lot of pleasure, but his meals. He feeds off the pleasure of his meals, we'll say. And him and Willow end up having a one-night stand, and the amount of pleasure that he gets from her pleasure, the amount of energy, literally knocks him out. I was charmed so soon into this book because the fact that I've read books where like the woman passes out from pleasure, but I've never read it where a man did, and that's what happens, and it was amazing. He also has a pierced man part, so I have some fan art of that, and it is golden, by the way. But Willow isn't interested in a relationship, or isn't interested in just a sexual relationship. And when Kyan discovers that after having fed off of Willow, he can't feed off of anyone else, which, you know, those of us who are paranormal and fantasy lovers, we have our senses tingling, and you'd be right that she is his fated mate of some kind. Now that he's found his perfect mate, no one else's pleasure can feed him. And so after 2 weeks of trying to feed off of someone else, he can't. And he's starving. He's starving. And so when he finds Willow again, he does kind of like force himself on her because he's starving. He never like goes too far with anything, but he does just like start making out with her. And she's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, this isn't what it's going to be. I want to be in love with someone. And he's like, I don't do love, but I really need your pleasure, so I'm going to date you. And one of the things he does discover, too, is that he doesn't just get fed from sexual pleasure. When he does other things to please her, like buying her flowers or learning about her passions, he can be fed by that as well. And I just really love that. Also, something I wanted to mention before I do talk about some of the things that I didn't like. Willow is a boudoir photographer, and there's a really beautiful note from Tiffany in the back that she was very inspired by a boudoir session that she did for herself after some of her children were born to help herself feel better about her. And I just was fascinated by that. I love that that's Willow's job. Boudoir photography is something that I've been really interested in for a couple years, and it's something that I want to go to for myself. I just haven't. It's not even that I'm like nervous about it. I just haven't taken the time to look into the places in my area where I could get it done. So I really loved that. Now, some of the things that I didn't love, because this is one of actually the lower rated Tiffany Roberts of mine. And it's not so much because I think that it's bad. Like, Tiffany Roberts, like all of their books have this quality that makes me smile. Like, their books are very charming to me. I get a lot of joy from reading them. Like, I really, really do. But I just felt like there was a lot of essay in this book, and that feels weird to say. And I'm not talking about when Kyan, like I said, kind of pushes himself on her in the beginning, because I don't feel like that was. He literally is starving. He starts kissing her. When she says stop, he stops. Like, sure, that might for some people be, but for me it wasn't, because the context was clear. There are two different men, one of them magical, one of them human, that force themselves on Willow at different points in here. I don't want to spoil the story for like why or how, but it just felt weird. Like, it didn't feel like they were necessary to happen. For sure, one of them, like the human who does it, I was like, what the fuck is going on with this? And I didn't like it. And also, I know Kyan is supposed to be learning to be good. Like, I don't have problems with that. But he makes some really stupid mistakes in a couple points in here that I'm just like, ugh, it was obnoxious to me. So I think that a lot of it goes into the fact that outside of like the Ensnared series, like the Spider's Mate, this is a pretty like long book for Tiffany Roberts. Like, it's 400 pages. That feels like a longer one for me. And it might be because, like, they're together and then, you know, they're separated for a little bit because, you know, they have their one night stand and then move along. I don't fully know what it was, but something about this one just didn't, like, it charmed me in the beginning, and then that started to fade. And then to have one assault and then another assault within just a couple chapters, I didn't jive with it. And I know I'm not usually the person who's like, these are my issues, but in a Tiffany Roberts book, it just felt off to me to have them happening like that. And it was tough. So the one assault that happens at the end of the book is by like literally the villain. And I would say that it's kind of telegraphed that he's going to do that. Like, it's telegraphed earlier on, but the one by a human, just, I would have taken it completely out of this book. In my opinion, don't come for me. I still love Tiffany Roberts. I have a whole collection of their books. They're definitely a favorite author of mine. This one just wasn't, and so that made me kind of sad. But I'm very excited for the Vrix series to be coming. It's officially in the back of their books that they send out now that The Vrix series will have 3. The Weaver, the Delver, the Hunter. It is in the back of their books. That is a series that's coming soon. So still beautiful. I'm still happy I have this copy. Look at his wings. Look at his art. I feel like the story took a couple missteps for me. So I gave this one a 3.5 star. But it was probably the spiciest Tiffany Roberts I read. And I gave it a 4.5 on the spice scale. It did have kinks for copious fluids, as well as definitely a breeding kink. And then there are trigger warnings for essay, violence, and coercion via magic. So just want to share those. All right, then I read an arc, and I read it pretty quickly, and it didn't really jive with me either. So we're going to go through it pretty quick. So I read an arc for Taming the Rake by Erica Ridley. I've been wanting to try some other Erica Ridley because her current series with like the ragtag family, I haven't been loving it, but I know that Erica Ridley has like tons of books. And so I wanted to try some other ones. And so when this one came up on NetGalley, I decided to give it a go because it's only 200 pages. And the premise of it sounded interesting. But then I got into it, and this book has some very heavy topics that are treated almost flippantly, in my opinion. And that does not fly with me at all. And so what happened with this book is that we have Gladys, who she's like 21, but she's already being considered a spinster, and her family's like, you need to find a husband, blah, blah, blah. And so she goes to this party, and she ends up in a situation where the hero, Ruben, thinks that she's someone he's going to have a tryst with. So he starts kissing her, and they start going at, and she's trying to like stop him, and he's like, you're the one I had my eye on. And she had her eye kind of on him. So she's like, oh, he saw me, because she's a wallflower and nobody pays attention to her. And so she's like, oh, does he really see me? Like, wow. And so she's kind of going along with it. And then when they kind of get like outed and he realizes she's not the one he thought he was meeting, he just really kind of blows her off and doesn't do the right thing. And she ends up being exiled by her family. They have to cut ties with her. They throw all their backing behind her younger sister. And she's kind of forced to leave society, become a courtesan a prostitute. And that is so glossed over. And then we skip, is it 5 or 6 years? All of a sudden, a couple of things. She's become so successful of a courtesan that she has enough money that she doesn't have to do it anymore after 5 years. This wallflower who knew nothing about seducing men has become so successful in 5 years that she's able to have her townhome and servants and just has it all. And she wants revenge against Ruben, who ruined her without a care. And so she decides to make him want her and then ruin him instead. So again, I'm kind of here for the revenge plot, except for 2 things. One, what he does, does not warrant how badly she wants to take him down. However, I would believe that if we had seen any of the suffering she goes through. We talk so flippantly about the fact that this woman was forced into prostitution. We can call it whatever we want. But anytime a woman is forced into selling her body so she can live, that is forced into prostitution. You might butter it all up and say that it's fun, but unless a woman is actually like, I want to just be doing this because I make a lot of money, whatever. No, her family has blacklisted her. She's been cast out of society, doesn't have a choice. That isn't something you're going to want to do. And how did she end up being a top courtesan? The point is this is a novella and we don't talk about that, but for how much she wants revenge against him, I know in the context of knowing what it would take for a woman who is used to being I don't know who her parents were off the top of my head, but used to being in more of the upper side of society to be pushed into this life. I know that would come with some scars, and it would come with some trauma, and it would come with a loss of innocence because she was a virgin when all this is happening. But we skip over all of that for the fact that it's been this many years. She's now ready to get her revenge, and she's a confident woman, and she can do this. So now she's going to ruin this guy who doesn't seem horrible. It seems like he just wasn't interested, and he wasn't going to get trapped into a marriage with a person he didn't think he was with. We can call him a rake or whatever, but also, he didn't know what was going to happen to her. And I'm not saying that he was perfect, and definitely there are double standards. But the point being, this book doesn't go into any of those. That's the thing. Like, this is the type of topic that, like, Courtney Milan has done well. And I've read it done very well by her before. And the way that this topic, for the heaviness that comes with it, this was way too flippant, way too quick. And, like, as soon as he remembers who she fully is, he's like, oh, my God, I'm so sorry. I just want to be with you so much. I can't believe that I spurned you. Like, and I was like, whoa, that's no. Like, no. So this tanked for me hard, and I was very disappointed. And I just hate it that it's another Erica Ridley that I'm just like, but this one, I don't know. I'm very sensitive about it when we talk about escorts or sex workers. Like, I want them to get the respect they deserve, and also their, like, trauma and the difficulty of women then and now go through when they're living on the fringes of society. And we just blew right past it and made it seem like it was no big deal that she lost her relationship with her family and friends and had to become a sex worker, because that's what a courtesan is, y'all. It's a sex worker. You're exchanging sex for money. That's what it is. So we took that way too lightly. So I got more passionate about that than I meant to. I was going to move right along, but because it was an ARC, I rated it a 3-star, which is the absolute lowest that I rate an ARC. Like, I just don't do it, but I did finish it, so I felt like I needed to review it. And I really didn't want to back out of another NetGalley book, because I have, in recent months, I, like, cleaned up my NetGalley, and if I wasn't going to read it, I, like, got rid of it. And I read it, so I rated it a 3, and I was like, I'm sorry, but this is how I feel about it. So I gave it a 3, and it was a 1 on the spice scale as well. There's only one sex scene in it, and I didn't love it at all. So this one, I put the triggers. I was like, a woman is forced into prostitution and family abandonment. And I said, like, the heavy issues presented were not handled with care, in my opinion. So moving right along to The Phantom by Gina Showalter. So I bring up these books whenever there's a new one. I've been reading the books in the Rise of the Warlord series. So I've read The Warlord, The Immortal, and now The Phantom. This series is really complicated for me to explain and dive into, so I'm not really going to do that. But basically there's a group of these warlords who they need to complete their tasks to make sure that their group of warlords has blessings for the next time, and if they mess it up, then they'll be cursed for the next time. And so far, they, like, all of their tasks involve killing someone, and it ends up being their mate that they're supposed to kill, and they end up finding a way around doing it. So I just really enjoy these. I really like the narrator for these books. I listen to them on audio, and so I can't stop getting them and buying them, even though, like, they're the only Gina Showalters I've read, and I'm not even, like, super attached to them, but I keep reading them when they come out. So for the story, for what's going on in this world, this one is a 4-star for me. It is a 1.5 on the spice scale, and there is, like, violence and death. There's death of a partner. Like, it begins with the heroine's husband being killed. Like, there's a lot going on with those, but I like them. All right, then I read One Look by Lena Hendricks. I talked about this one a lot in my monthly wrap-up, so I won't, like, go too much into it, because you can go watch my March wrap-up for more about that one. But this, to me, was kind of sold as, like, if you love Heartless, try this. And like I said in my monthly wrap-up, I'm not saying it's as good as Heartless. I'm not saying that. There's a bit of the, like, emotional, like, wow factor that I got from Heartless, which made that a favorite of the year. But honestly, like, when you're looking for books that are like, if you like this, try this, I highly recommend One Look. I ended up picking it up for 2 reasons. One, it was in Elsie Silver's newsletter saying that it was a small town, single dad, grumpy sunshine, yeah, all the small town vibes and everything. And I was like, okay, I'll pick that up. And also, Lena Hendricks is going to be at the North Iowa Book Bash, which I'm going to at the end of April. So I thought it would be fun to try one of those authors that I hadn't read anything by yet. And I did end up ordering a copy of this one and another one she has, that Single Dad, to get them signed when I see her. So this one is about Wyatt, who is a college football coach, And we have Lark, who is an out-of-work actress. And this book actually begins with her having been hired to be a mourner at a funeral because this town has a family feud going on. And within this family feud, some of the older ladies in the town were worried there wouldn't be enough people at this funeral. So they hire her as a mourner. But then she starts getting this side eye from Wyatt, who's like, who is this chick who's here mourning at this guy's funeral? And it comes with some like funny moments that one of them involves her falling on top of the casket in the grave. But she ends up really liking this small town and decides to stay there and work for a little bit. And Wyatt, he ends up deciding to stay in town. Him and his daughter have lived away from town, but his father actually has dementia and he's declining, and his two brothers have been the ones kind of looking out for their dad. There's 4 siblings in this series. I assume we'll get all of them. There's 3 brothers and 1 sister. Also sounds like an Elsie Silver series, right? Right? And so there was also a lot of love language looked in here, which I really like. Anyway, and he decides that he wants to stick around in town. He also, for his job as the college coach, he has 3 college guys who are on the team. One of them is injured. One of them needs to, like, keep his grades up. So these 3 kind of, like, they're not, like, troubled boys, but, like, they need to keep their noses clean and stay out of trouble. They actually come to stay with him and his daughter, and he's going to keep an eye on them. And our heroine ends up getting hired to be his assistant and kind of help him with this. And I really like that. I really like that. So they have great chemistry right away. But then once she becomes, kind of his employee, he, is then like, this will keep me from fucking her because she's my employee. Well, it doesn't. But I really, really love this. This book doesn't have a third act breakup. It does have still their like challenges they need to work through together, including, does she still want an acting career, or is she happy with, being in this small town? But it was a very low angst story, and I had a really good time with it. So I ended up giving this 5 stars. This was a 3 on the spice scale. This had praise, dirty talk, and a little bit of breeding kink going on. And it does have that trigger warning for dementia for the father. All right, then we had another fanfic. This one is Everyday a Little Death, and it's by Love Bitka 48, who also wrote The Auction, which is why I think this one was actually a viewer recommendation. This showed up in the rec forum. I don't think there was a name for who recommended it, but whoever did, thank you. So that's where I got the recommendation. When I saw who the author of it was, that kind of kicked it up for me more, because I was like, oh, I love The Auction. This one, definitely not a dark one. This was really kind of like a smutty, fun time. And this is Hermione and Draco. It's an 8th year fic, so that means that those who are in 7th year during the 7th book, but weren't able to graduate because, Voldemort came to school for it, they're like back at school doing an 8th year. So Harry and Ron didn't go, but pretty much everybody else is there. And Hermione has kind of become this project of the Slytherins who discover that she can't orgasm, and they're all trying to make her orgasm. And in the beginning of this book, Draco hears about it, and number one, he thinks they're crazy, but he's also intrigued. I know this is a weird book to explain it, but he ends up seeking her out and asking if he could have a turn trying, and that he's not doing it for bragging rights. He honestly wants to help her do this. And so they agree, and they start meeting up for him to try to make her orgasm. So yeah, and we do lots of different things. It includes him going down on her for long stretches of time, which is beautiful. Kind of trying to work through some of the mental things of like what's keeping her from coming. And also what I really did enjoy is she tells him at certain points, like, you can't ever get angry if I don't come at some time, because she has a little bit of trauma from previous partner being angry that she can't come and kind of like blaming her for it. So she's like, if I ever can't, like, you need to like just be okay with it. And I really liked the back and forth between them. There was lots of fun, like, kinky things they would try. Like, they do some BDSM, and actually Hermione does the doming in some scenes, which was great. There's a great scene where Draco was like, well, I was going to be the dom. And she's like, have you done this before? And he's like, no. And she's like, and I have done this before, and it would also turn me on a lot to boss you around. So I'm going to go first. And he's like, can I have a turn sometime? And she's like, yeah, if you're a good boy, you can. So, oof, it was good. I liked it. This did have a bout of cheating in it, though, which was difficult. And it was kind of funny. Some things you'll notice if you've read a lot of fic, that sometimes the author's notes at the beginning, you can tell that the author was getting bad feedback, because the author was like, okay, apparently I should have added a trigger warning for that. I'm sorry if you wanted this to be whatever. So, like, we don't see it on page, but there is an admittance of cheating. However, the author is doing it for a purpose. Do I like reading that? No. But I still liked this story, and I gave it 4 stars, and it was a 4.5 on the spice scale, because there's pretty much sex in every chapter, and we try a lot of different things to get us there. And so, yeah, I had a good time with it. So, yeah, that was a fun one. And then the last book that I finished, which I cranked out yesterday, is The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. And with reading this, I read every book on my TBR for the month of March, which made me extremely happy. That made me extremely happy that I was able to do that. I was like, woohoo, Jen, kicking butt. So I was able to do that. So anyway, this is the first book in the Crowns of Nyaxia series by Carissa Broadbent. Carissa Broadbent, I was a big fan in the months of February and March, and these are the books she's currently got out. So The Serpent and the Wings of Night is book 1 in the Nightborn duet. So there's going to be 6 books, and you'll learn once you start this series that there are 3 houses in this. There's the House of Night, the House of Blood, and the House of Shadow. And so each house is going to get a duet, so there'll be 6 books, which means this one had kind of a cliffhanger between Rain and Aurea, who is the couple in it. And this is Vampire Hunger Games, okay? There's no other way to say it, and I mean it in the most complimentary fashion. But Aurea is a human. She has been adopted by a vampire king, and this is her chance to compete in a competition where she'll be able to win a prize. I won't spoil you what this prize is, but this competition only comes around every so many years. And because she's human, she needs to compete in this competition when she's at her peak physical form. So though she's, because the next time it comes around, she might be too old and not in the same form that she is. And within this, I think it starts out with 50 contestants from all the different houses, and they're all competing to win this. And she ends up finding some unlikely allies, and we go from there. I don't want to spoil anything else. So this book, wow, there was so much in this, and I did give this one 5 stars because I love Carissa Broadbent. I still think I like The War of Lost Hearts better. I feel like I know those characters so well. And I know I read 3 books of them. But I still felt by the end of the first book in that series that I knew Tasana and Max more than I know Aurea and Rain. But I still really like this because I think Carissa Broadbent writes great fantasy. I just think that there was a lot more detail and time put into The War of Lost Hearts, whereas this one we really jump into everything right away, and there's a lot of things that aren't explained, and you're just supposed to fly by the seat of your pants with it, which I'm okay with doing to a certain degree. And this was a blast. If you want to hop into this one, the next one is coming out soon. Also, the audiobook for this one comes out this month. And there is a novella called 6 Scorched Roses, which I want to get to very soon. So yeah, I hope it's the year of Carissa Broadbent. Okay, woman is about to have a baby, and she's got a lot of books planned this year, and I'm hoping for the best for her. It's amazing. So this was a 5-star book for me. This one had Grumpy Sunshine, where the heroine is grumpy. It's enemies to lovers, vampire hero, and this has some biting going on in the kinky times. And then there are lots of trigger warnings. She has a full trigger warning list in the beginning. But the big ones for me are self-harm, emotional abuse, slavery, and references to sexual abuse. And there is a flashback of a rape that happens. So there's a lot in here, but none of it was without purpose. None of it was gratuitous. So this world of vampires is vicious and crazy, and I loved it. So there we go. Those are all the books that I read this last week of March. I can't wait to get into April. I'm already excited by my April TBR and everything that I have coming for it. It's going to be amazing. Yeah, there's some great books coming out. So thank you so much for watching this, y'all, and I will see you next time. Bye.